Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today on the AI Airlock. My name is Paul Campbell. I'm the Head of Software and AI at MHRA. It's my pleasure to welcome you here today to our webinar alongside my colleagues, Dr. Russell Pearson and Dr. Hannah Bowden. As a bit of background, just wanted to introduce the webinar and the context of this for you. So you'll be aware that software medical devices, and especially AI medical devices, really do have potential to fix some of the broken bits of our NHS and our healthcare systems. However, to do this in the continually evolving healthcare landscapes, the ability for AI medical devices to play a positive role here is really dependent on those products being safe, reliable, and robust technologies. These technologies have to work alongside the existing staff and services and infrastructure of our NHS. So our AI Airlock is designed to help ensure that these AI devices will indeed be safe, robust, and useful in these settings. It's probably also worth noting that we already have a regulatory framework in place for medical devices. This already covers software and AI medical devices as a part of that software. But we are in the process, I'm sure, as you know, of updating these regulations and the guidance alongside them. We're doing that in line with our published software change management programme. And we're also working with our international partners, such as the FDA, Health Canada, and the IMDREF to produce further guidance on many topics, particularly around AI medical devices. However, we recognise that there are challenges with regulating AI medical devices. That's why we have this AI Airlock. That's why we're working with our various partners in the AI Airlock. These include the NHS AI Labs, the Department of Health and Social Care, our colleagues, our approved body colleagues from UK Team AB. And we've created this collaborative environment to help the participants in the AI Airlock, indeed to help all parties in the Airlock better understand these regulatory challenges for AI medical devices and understand how best to handle these. So that's a bit of background context. It's maybe just to let you know, during the webinar, we've got a full presentation for you from my colleagues, but during the webinar, you should hopefully see in the chat, and you should also have in your invite instructions on how to join Slido. So we'll be taking questions using Slido, not on Zoom. So no point in putting any questions in Zoom, but please note any questions in Slido, and we'll spend our time at the end answering those questions. You'll see that we're not in a position, we're not going to be talking about any future policy positions or any other policy positions. We're going to keep the scope of the questions to AI Airlock. So if you can help us with that, we can all spend plenty of time answering the questions to the best of our abilities and hopefully to help you the most. So finally, there's a fantastic team working behind the scenes now on the AI Airlock, and I'm going to hand you over to my two colleagues. We have, first of all, Dr. Russell Pearson. Russell is our AI Regulatory Policy and Project Lead here at the MHRA. And alongside him, we have Dr. Hannah Bowden, our AI Programme Manager. In fairness, both Russell and Hannah have been instrumental in bringing this AI Airlock pilot project and webinar to you today. So thank you for that. We're really excited to start this project with all of you. And at this point, I'm going to hand you over now to Hannah. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Welcome, everybody. So today we're going to cover a brief introduction to the MHRA and regulatory sandboxes more generally. We'll provide further information on the AI Airlock pilot programme since it's been launched earlier this year. This will include some of the product types and the regulatory challenges that we'll be looking to engage with in this first pilot phase. We'll also talk through some of the next steps and how you can get involved. As Paul mentioned, we should have plenty of time at the end for some questions, where we'll look to answer some AI Airlock programme-specific questions through the Slido. On to the next slide, please. So we are the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, and as the regulator of medicines, medical devices, and blood components for the UK, we're responsible for ensuring they meet set standards for safety, quality, and efficacy. Our team specifically for the Airlock programme sits within the Healthcare Quality and Access Group of the Innovative Devices Division. On the next slide, please. AI is becoming increasingly more accessible and more prominent in multiple aspects of life and work. The MHRA is taking a three-perspective approach to its strategy for AI, as outlined in our publication on the 30th of April. Firstly, the agency is a user of AI, and we have the opportunity to improve the efficiency of some of the services that we provide. This spans right across all of our regulatory functions, from regulatory science through market access for medicines and devices, through to post-market surveillance and enforcement. Secondly, understanding how our customers are using AI and how that impacts on how we regulate them. So increasingly, we expect AI to feature in how those we regulate undertake their activities and generate evidence. And we need to be able to ensure that we understand the impact of that in order to continue to regulate effectively. And thirdly, and most relevant for this programme, as a regulator of AI medical device products, and ensuring that there's a proportionate regulation of AI medical devices, which takes into account the risks of these products without stifling the potential that they have to transform healthcare. Where AI as a model is used to deliver a medical purpose, it will be classified as a medical device. Examples where AI has successfully been deployed for medical purpose include diagnostic medical images. Artificial intelligence or machine learning is a subset of software and is currently regulated under the medical device regulation as software. On the next slide, please. As Paul mentioned, we are currently undertaking a reform of the medical devices legislation, driven by innovations in the life sciences sector, learnings from Cambridge Review, and includes ongoing changes to regulatory guidance for software as a medical device to include artificial intelligence as a medical device products. This reform builds upon, on the same slide, thank you. This reform builds upon a well-established regulatory system of legislation, guidance and standards to address known challenges and align with other regulatory jurisdictions around the world. More information about the change programme can be found in our published change programme roadmap. In tandem with this regulatory system update, we've seen a marked increase in innovative devices entering the UK market, particularly AI as a medical device and digital technologies that utilise AI, which are on the borderline of the scope of the current medical device regulations. The use of AI products has developed greatly over the last 2 decades, and while supplementary guidance, international harmonisation and the regulatory reform programmes are critical for businesses and the agency working in a global regulatory environment, the MHRA wants to proactively identify evidence and address some of the remaining regulatory challenges in the system. So I'll now hand over to Russ to talk about some more detail about these types of challenges.
Next slide, please. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, everybody. And fantastic to see so many people coming today. It's been a long time coming in this webinar setup, and we're really looking forward to sharing all this with you today. So thank you again. I thought we'd start here with diving a little bit into some of the risks and challenges we see for these products more broadly. Just to reiterate, so we're interested in regulating medical devices, specifically AI as a medical device, which is formed as a subset product area of software as a medical device, which is sometimes referred to as SAMD. And all of these products are regulated under the general medical device regulations under the UK medical devices regulation. So I'm just going to go through this a little bit just to kind of give a bit of a sense as to the sorts of challenges, sorts of risks and difficulties that we have when it comes to regulating this product area today. Not all of these are being addressed directly by the Airlock. We will cover that later on. However, it's good to get a bit of a sense as to sort of the breadth and the scale and of the problems that we're trying to kind of tackle from a regulatory perspective to ensure that these products are as safe and effective as possible for patients and the public. So just starting one layer up from AI, starting at the software space, we've put 4, these are not exhaustive by the way, but we've put sort of 4 broad risk areas that we're addressing through our various approaches, whether it's legislative changes or changes to guidance or this AI Airlock project. So the first one there is that software is very easy to deploy at scale. It's not physical. It's quite straightforward once you've got it created to well, I say straightforward, but you know, people often sell these things through app stores or onto predefined networks or outputs that can actually deploy these things at multiple sites or make it very easy for people to download them themselves. So once a product is created, any inherent problems with that product, any risks that might be built into there that should have been designed out, for example, they can actually spread very, very quickly. As we may have seen at the end of last week with all the airport problems as well, this is something that can happen at scale very rapidly and can have a very, very big impact to the quality of the product and any risks associated with that if we're not careful and we don't do these things well prior to releasing that product. Similarly, the geography is less of a barrier to software products for obvious reasons. This means that you can move both software, AI products, virtual products across international boundaries, pretty straightforward between jurisdictions as well, because you can do remote installations, you can do updating, these sorts of things. Geography isn't just between countries as well, this can be between sites. So it's much easier as well to deploy a product in a few different locations at the same time, and rather than going, say, one site and then another site and another site, it can be deployed across geographies within the country as well. Another big feature of software and AI products.
Russ, sorry to interrupt. Your audio's a bit quiet, Russ. Can you
Oh,
maybe
is it? Okay.
make it a little? Thank you.
Apologies, everyone.
No
I
problem.
can either try shouting. Let me just see if I can turn my microphone level up. Is that a bit better?
That's much better. Thanks, Russ.
Okay. Apologies, everyone. I'll carry on, and hopefully I'll try and pick up some of the points that I might have skimmed over earlier as well. So just to recap super quick. Point one there is that a software product that can be deployed pretty easily at scale. This means it can get into the hands of end users rapidly. You can easily have 100,000 downloads from an app store within the first day. These sorts of things. This means that small problems can scale very rapidly if they're not caught before deployment. Similarly with geography as well, you can take it between countries or between locations within a country pretty rapidly with remote installation and remote updating, these sorts of things. This is just a fact of software products that we have to consider when we're talking about the regulations of them for safety. The nature of software development means that processes such as agile development and agile project management and stuff are pretty commonplace within the software community. You can rapidly prototype, rapidly update and change your products. You can, again, this goes hand in hand with the deployment as well. If you can make an update to your product, you can deploy it very rapidly. You can get these things rolled out often nationally very easily. This can be a good thing and a risk. It means that risks baked into things or problems that are missed can be rolled out, but also fixes can also be rolled out rapidly. So we have quite a few strengths as well in the software space to be able to address problems. Finally, there on the left, but not exhaustive, by the way. So this is not all the risks we see. I've just picked kind of 4 kind of key ones that we like to focus on from a software or virtual product point of view. Is the fact that this is a complicated system. You're often reliant on existing infrastructure, which may not be owned by the medical device manufacturer. It's often a third-party vendor to such as an NHS, to a NHS trust or stuff as well. So there can be quite a complicated set of infrastructure that you need to interact with as a medical device manufacturer here. This is not exclusive to software, but it's particularly complicated. And again, it's particularly changeable as well, because all of these IT infrastructures have their own software updates and various things to work with as well. So that's to give a sort of idea of the software layer of virtual product risk that we're trying to manage through our various means here at the agency. But just diving another layer down into AI products, which again is a subset of software products, we've just bundled together a couple of areas which whilst not necessarily specific to AI in some cases, are often exaggerated or seen more acutely in the AI product space as well. So taking these 3 broad categories, sorry, into consideration. So interpretability, explainability, the ability to understand how the product's working, how the information can be trusted by end users, how the human-computer team can actually be maximized to be efficient. All of this stuff is quite complicated in the AI space. There's been a lot of work in the last few years in various areas trying to kind of understand how products are working, try to understand how the process occurs under the hood. You may have heard the phrase or the term black box AI quite often as well. This tends to scale with the larger and the more complicated models as well. So the more difficult it is to understand how it works, the harder it might be to navigate certain regulatory challenges as well. This feeds into the second category, which is generating evidence. Some types of AI specifically, some of the more recent generative AI products as well, in particular, it can have some challenges as to how you actually present your evidence, that it works safely and effectively, or the trials or the types of processes you must go through to gather that evidence as well. And then, as I've touched upon previously, software products and AI in particular is actually quite inherent. It's quite an inherent part of it, being able to update and improve and make tweaks to these products or adapt into their environments. We'll talk about this a little bit later on, but this again is this brings a bunch of challenges, not just because if you are trying to pass a regulatory challenge in a static system, you then have to potentially redo parts of that again if you make a change to that system. So in summary, I'm just trying to give a bit more time to appreciate the wide range of risks and challenges that software and AI products bring to the table broadly. And we're just going to walk through why we think some of these challenges, or why some of the things that AI brings to the table may benefit from a different way of working to the standard tools that we as a regulator have in our toolkit, namely guidance, presentations, and legislation. So next slide, please. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about regulatory sandboxes. A bit of water because I know I've talked a lot on that last slide. So the AI Airlock is a version of a regulatory sandbox. We are taking forward regulatory sandboxes as a new way to try to address some of these challenging issues within innovative areas such as AI. So, but what is a regulatory sandbox basically? So as a starting point, it's a space for you to bring innovative activities. In our case, that will largely be products because we are a product safety regulator. But other sandboxes have been around. They've grown in a lot of popularity in recent years. Some people are using them to evaluate services or business models. And they, as the name would suggest, they come with some form of regulatory support or regulatory interaction with, often with a public body such as a government regulator, in our case. So they bring people together as well. We use them a lot to increase awareness and hone in on what is the actual regulatory consequences of the activity that's being tested. Sometimes this is pretty apparent, we know this going in, but sometimes this will be uncovered. So the freedom to explore those challenges within a space with the regulators hand in hand in a collaborative manner, we think is a real strength in this as well. And then the final point as well is there needs to be a purpose for interacting with the regulator, to embarking on these activities. Both us and the people that engage with their products and their services and various activities into a regulatory sandbox needs to get something out of it as well. So the endeavor to create your regulatory sandbox, and in our case, the AI Airlock, actually bring a benefit to both us as the regulator and the innovators that are bringing their challenges to the table as well. Next slide, please. So we did quite a lot of background research. As I said, regulatory sandboxes themselves as an approach to understanding and managing regulatory challenges have grown in popularity quite a lot in the last decade or so. There's been a lot of work in the finance sector and in other sectors in healthcare. Here we found two examples at least of other sandboxes that we're aware of happened in recent years in the healthcare sector. Do encourage people to go and read them. On the left there is the NHS England's testbed programme, where they tested a range of difficulties and different to understand how they can evaluate various different topics nationally. I'm not sure they necessarily classified this as a regulatory sandbox because it was back in 2018 and the term may not have been as popular back then. But on the right hand side as well, there was a more recent collaborative sandbox that the CQC did and we fed into a couple of years back as well. So I do encourage people to go and have a look at these publications. They're very good and they give a good sense as to the advantages of bringing people together to do that as well. Another thing to note is that whilst regulatory sandboxes have grown in popularity in recent years, that means that there's quite a lot of different ways to run a sandbox, different ways to evaluate a sandbox, and different kind of outputs you'd expect. There does appear to be a bit of a coalescence around global best practice for regulatory sandboxes emerging. So where possible, we're actually feeding into that. We're utilizing those global best practice frameworks and some of the sort of standardized approaches that are coming out of the literature into this program where possible, because one thing in an emerging field, especially if it's an emerging approach to looking at emerging technologies, is we want to try to create standardization as much as possible and make sure that the outputs are useful or can read across to other areas as well. So in summary, our regulatory sandbox or AI will be building upon prior sandboxes in other sectors such as finance and data protection, and they will be drawing on and learning lessons from other healthcare sandboxes, both in the UK and further afield as well. So next slide, please. So what we're trying to demonstrate on this slide really is to marry up those two kind of aspects, right? So I gave an overview of some of the challenges that we see for software and AI products and the complications around understanding how they could be regulated and whether regulations need to take a closer look at certain aspects, for example. And we've done a bit of an overview of what is a regulatory sandbox and what's happened in the past. So this list in the middle of the screen that is able to test the current regulatory framework, that there may be a low amount of evidence available, there may be a low amount of knowledge by the people participating in the sandbox. If you were to let everybody run the regulations separately, then people may be able to tackle different problems themselves and not be able to work together. So taking more of a team collaborative approach is another benefit. And the ability to actually look across the entire product lifecycle rather than viewing the regulatory challenges as a pre-market only barrier to getting past the regulations and then being forgotten about. One of the key successes to managing regulations is to tackle this across the entire product lifecycle, ensure that there are feedback loops, ensure that the entire regulatory lifecycle of the product is actually well addressed and well understood. So that list in the middle there is some things that we believe from our literature review that regulatory sandboxes are particularly well suited for helping to tackle and helping to understand by their approach. And we feel that this marries up quite nicely with some of the challenges that we see for AI medical devices in particular. So bringing both of those two things together, this is why we embarked on this, and we are hoping to understand in this AI Airlock pilot project a little bit better. I believe I am passing back to my colleague Hannah for this.
Thank you. So on the 9th of May, the MHRA launched its AI Airlock program to address the challenges that we've spoken through in regulating AI as a medical device product. The Airlock will be the agency's first medical devices regulatory sandbox and provide a safe space for real or prototype products to uncover these targeted challenges and help identify the regulatory consequences of addressing them. Building on what Russell has just outlined about regulatory sandboxes, we want the Airlock to be a collaborative exploration of these challenges faced by the system today. As part of the project scoping and setup, as Russ mentioned, we've reviewed the achievements of other regulators and the use of other regulatory sandboxes, and we intend to build on the lessons learned by others. By using real-world products and challenges, the AI Airlock will bring together the expertise of key partners, including UK-approved bodies, the NHS, and other regulators, to test the current regulatory framework, push the boundaries of new products, and look for regulatory solutions and recommendations for improvements to the framework. On the next slide, please. The Airlock team are looking to recruit a cohort of between 4 to 6 participants that will be selected for the AI Airlock pilot programme. This will ensure that an adequate amount of time can be dedicated to each product at any one time during this pilot. The first phase will run until April 2025, and the learnings from this time will inform the next phase and future programme years for the agency. We're looking to build a portfolio of products that really maximise the learnings available. We're hoping to cast a wide net of product participants in our application phase. This pilot will be open to a broad range of AI product types from various clinical areas right across the product lifecycle. This can be from a conceptual development of a product right the way through to pre-market testing or fully developed products that may be close to or already on the market. Participants will form a project team with a dedicated case manager within the Airlock programme. They will also be supported by the AI Airlock Supervisory Committee and report on a regular basis in close collaboration and gain exposure to a unique collection of subject matter and technical expertise to support candidates and project teams through their challenges. The Airlock programme will be governed by a board that will be composed of internal and external experts in the field and will strategically drive the programme, help with identifying risks and the appropriate mitigations. As regulatory sandboxes are a new way of working for the MHRA, the programme will be evaluated by a delivery partner to review the impact of this new way of working for the agency, help us to capture formal lessons learned to apply to future phases. The outputs of this programme will include 3 types of report. One generated by each of the Airlock participants in a form of a case study that will be based on their experiences and the outcome of their challenge test. The Supervisory Committee, with the support of the programme team, will report on the programmatic outcome of the cohort results and any recommendations. And a further report from the programme evaluation partner will be able to help us learn about regulatory sandboxes for the MHRA. Across all of this, confidentiality agreements will be established with all members of the governance and for project candidates, meaning that any public outputs will be balanced and any commercially sensitive information will be protected in line with agency security policies. On the next slide, we can see a simplified diagram of the Airlock workflow. The call for applications will open in early autumn, just after summer, where candidates can submit their product for consideration to join the project. After a sifting process, the Airlock will build its pilot portfolio cohort. Following selection, the product candidates will be onboarded. This will include the confidentiality and commitment agreements previously mentioned. The case manager will work with the candidates to develop a testing plan. This will outline the test objectives, any success measures, and risk mitigation plans. The test plan will be bespoke to the candidate. It will be dependent on the product type, the regulatory maturity, the test challenge, and the data access availability. Candidates will then move into the implementation phase as designed in their testing design phase, with support from the regulatory expertise within the programme team. Throughout this time, checkpoint meetings will be held, along with reporting into the Supervisory Committee at regular intervals. At the end of the testing phase, candidates will then report their outcomes. They will determine an exit plan, which may include any future regulatory activities that are required, including lessons learned from the sandbox experience. Part of this will be preparing the public report. It's worth saying here, the Airlock is not a route to market. So an output of the Airlock will not be directly linked to an approval for use, and the current processes for gaining that approval will stand after the Airlock experience. The documentation and publication phase will help us to identify the programme lessons learned and publish the programmatic evaluation of the process. On the next slide, I will talk a little bit more about the testing environments that we will be looking to establish as part of the Airlock, that will each have varying timeframes and resource requirements. So firstly, the simulation Airlock. This testing environment will involve treating the product assessment as a thought experiment conducted through a focus roundtable or a workshop format. For this stage, data ethics and regulatory requirements may not be needed in this environment to explore any potential pitfalls or conduct a product pre-mortem. This is where a failure state is presumed, and then a retrospective analysis is conducted to identify potential deficiencies in the product or in the frameworks. The feasibility of addressing these deficiencies is then explored and written up with the aim of refining investigations further over time. A second category of sandbox utilises virtual environments using real or synthetic data to test products against virtual scenarios. For this stage, access to existing virtual environments will be a key differentiator within the application criteria for this environment. This category of sandbox would be good for products that could utilise current exemptions from the medical devices regulations to conduct research studies. The Airlock program team would work with the researchers that are conducting this study directly to understand the novel challenges experienced prior to any real-world deployment. A final category of sandbox utilizes real-world deployment environments. Depending on the regulatory status of the product, this may require MHRA to assess safety for pre-market or post-market issues and maintain continuous oversight to ensure safety. Varying factors will influence each of these testing environments and which one will be most appropriate for the product candidates. Things like the time, the resource, the data requirements will all differ greatly and be dependent on the product data maturity and the challenge type to be addressed by the Airlock. These testing environments will be assigned on a case-by-case basis during onboarding and the testing design phases. Prior components, including access to the data, any ethics agreements will need to be established by candidates ahead of onboarding, and the Airlock pilot will not be able to provide additional testing data or virtual environments at this stage. Therefore, candidates will need to consider the access they have as part of their testing design. I will hand back over to Russ to talk more about the Airlock objectives and benefits.
Thanks, Hannah. Yep, so as Hannah mentioned, we're going to try and talk about some of the objectives of the Airlock and some of the potential areas that we see from our side. This could be brought into the project, basically. So I'm going to spend a bit of time here. I just want to reiterate and highlight a little bit that this is not exhaustive. We're very aware that part of the purpose of creating a regulatory sandbox is to provide an opportunity to explore unknown unknowns and challenges that we may not be aware of or may not have thought of or may not have come across in other avenues of work. So here I've put together with the team a little bit of kind of some key categories that we believe might be interesting challenge areas to consider. This is not an exhaustive list or an inclusion criteria for the application process. There are many, many things that you could bring to us, but I just wanted to run through this list a little bit and kind of give a bit more context as to what we're thinking about on each of these, basically. So they're also not in any particular order or any particular ranking. This is just trying to categorize things into broad bucket, basically. So on the top left-hand corner there, complications and challenges around maintaining stability of AI systems is a topic that we're interested in. This can be between locations. This can be to do with model drifting over time. Sometimes this can be performance drift. So maintaining the product within its kind of regulated approval barriers and boundaries, basically. This is not necessarily something that is always a problem, if that makes sense as well. Products can actually improve slightly over time as well based on external factors. So we are interested in understanding this area more. It's not always about problems, if that makes sense. It can be as much about learning about how drift is just a factor that needs to be taken into account when you're looking at the life cycle of an AI product. But primarily this is also about safety as well. So we're interested when things drift out of safety parameters, basically, as well. So moving over to the top middle one, we talked about it earlier, but the interpretability and complexity of understanding how patients, carers, users, anybody associated, any human that's interacting with an AI product. There's a lot of complicated issues there around bias, around trusting these products, about understanding how they're coming to their decisions and how they're able to communicate that to the humans in the process. They're in the loop as well. There's a lot of regulatory risks, I think, in many of these, but in the interpretability in particular. And just to reiterate as well, we're interested specifically in the regulatory risks that we are able to influence as the medical device manufacturer. That doesn't mean it's not useful to identify other risks that other regulators or other frameworks might be interested in, and they could be written up, but they're not necessarily the focus of this project because we are medical device regulatory agency, sorry. The top right-hand corner one there, this is primarily in the post-market space. This is quite a big area of work, we feel, where being able to identify erroneous results, failure states in AI models, false positives, false negatives, being able to identify them at the correct time in the workflow and understand how that could be, how you could do a root cause analysis, how you could report those, and how you could just generally do more of the post-market surveillance requirements under the legislation in a safer manner. We see quite a lot of challenges here in meeting the regulations. This is probably a good area that we'd like to explore as well, for example. So moving on to that middle row. These two ones, validation, evidence, are a little bit linked. Evidence does underpin everything, but validation, there's this will pop up across the life cycle for sure. I think there's not just identification of what is a sufficiently robust validation process or what kind of validation is expected at different points in the life cycle of the product, but there's an element of pragmatism as well to be taken into account when it comes to meeting regulatory requirements and regulatory processes across the life cycle of the product. So it's not just about identifying how you would validate the product, but it's about ensuring that the validation process is fit for purpose for the specific process occurring that needs validating, whether that is a deployment or a product update or a correction to a post-market problem, for example. This is also one of the areas that I think generative AI is going to bring particular challenges to as well, is being able to validate generative AI models can be in itself a bit of a complex area, as I understand. Again, so just kind of linking to that, the evidence one, there's a lot of focus on pre-market evidence, but evidence itself should also be taken across the life cycle. So this should be like a total evidence journey of the product, being able to understand whether you still have sufficient evidence today based on what you conducted in the past with the product, and how these changing products and changing requirements, whether it's through drift, whether it's through updates, or whether it's through moving to a new location with a different patient cohort, how does your evidence base look against these slightly new requirements, and how can you ensure that the evidence is there in order to continue to place your product safely on the market? At the bottom left-hand corner, there's quite a large area there, and I'm very aware that automation isn't strictly just a medical device problem. This is an aspect that AI is pushing on many sectors. There's a lot of changes in the way that humans and AI products could interact. There's many ways that workflows are being changed by the presence of software more broadly, but AI in particular, people are using to try to automate and change these processes. Sometimes that's reducing the humans' involvement with the technology. Sometimes that's replacing it. So again, we're interested in the aspects that would impact product safety, patient safety, and medical device regulations when it comes to automation. This links nicely to the bottom middle one along, because sometimes functionality changes through automation are actually leading to products that may not obviously be a medical device to become a medical device. So another area to explore within this project may be to look at whether things are qualifying as a medical device or sufficiently classified by the safety classification, by risk classification for safety, basically. Again, generative AI and automation are the areas that are stretching some of these things and causing us to think this might be good areas to have more of a collaborative investigation into when does something become a medical device, when does something become high risk as a product category or a particular area. And then finally, we've talked along these lines a little bit already, but a lot of these systems are software systems, full stop, are not static systems for the most part. They often have periodic updates, patches, and stuff like that. AI, there seems to be both a requirement and a bit of a drive to take this to potentially to its logical endpoint, which is to adapt almost per input and have some sort of adaptive system that is able to continuously retrain itself or update itself based on inputs. These sorts of challenges are twofold. There is challenges in doing that process itself, and then often making a change is obviously a difference from a baseline. This baseline may be set by some of the other problem areas. So the adaptivity problem is quite multifaceted. So how do you change a product with itself? It's difficult to define the baseline and define what good looks like as well. So there's many aspects within the adaptivity bucket, if you like, that would be interesting exploring. So just to remind as well, this is a snapshot. This is not exhaustive. This is not saying you have to bring a challenge that could be popped into one of these categories easily. Please do let us know if there's other things that you think are of interest. We invite engagement. We invite people to bring some of these things to the project or bring new things to the project as well. I was going to take this opportunity at the bottom there just to slightly reframe things as well. We often hear in some situations that the regulations as a concept can be a bit of a barrier for innovation, but we're hoping to reframe that a little bit and convince people to realize that in this project we don't necessarily see the regulations as the barrier. These such challenges such as these regulatory challenges, technical challenges, implementation challenges come with innovative approaches, with innovative technologies, and the regulations can help to focus down and organize some of these challenges, and not just so that you're actually able to navigate the requirements a little bit better. So we're also hoping that the AI Airlock enables us to reframe things slightly from barriers to something that could be useful, that could be beneficial to people trying to bring innovation to market. I think that's enough on that slide. Can I move on to the next one, please? Thank you very much. So why basically, why would you come and have a go at the Airlock? Why would you come and join us on this journey? Why would you benefit from collaborating with us? So I've got some points here that we're going to try to outline. And again, these are from our perspective. If people think of other benefits, we would very much like to hear. We can't think of all of them, and we wanted 9 nice things on the slide there. So if there's more, then we would like to hear. So again, just starting at the top left there. So this is an opportunity to come and work directly with the regulator. We will, as Hannah's outlined quite nicely, we've got a framework for how we're going to run our regulatory sandbox or our AI Airlock. But there's a lot of detail will be based on the challenge and the product and the position that product and organization are in when they go to the application process. So a lot of this will be tailored very bespoke to try to work with you to get to the bottom of what the challenge that you're presenting is. It may not be what you think it is. It may not be what we think it is. The whole point is to design something for us to explore together and work this out, and that will be tailored to the specific needs of that project. Underpinning all of this work, underpinning regulatory sandboxes, underpinning kind of the ability to tackle some of these complicated, innovative AI problems is a collaborative approach. We can all sit in our own areas trying to improve things, trying to make things safer, more effective as we want, but there are certain challenges that we believe will only be able to be navigated if we all work together on this. That's, I think, Paul said in the introduction, that's us, that is our approved body colleagues at Team AB, that's the people that bring problems to us as well as NHS expertise and other regulators, other associated stakeholders that we may want to draw upon or share information with occasionally if we believe, even if it's just a challenge that is outside of the scope of this project, but it's still an important challenge to navigating a regulatory barrier. Moving on from that, this is an opportunity for all of us to improve our understanding of regulatory frameworks and how they would apply to AI. Sometimes it may be that the framework itself is lacking detail in exactly what's expected. Sometimes the framework may be fine, but the way to navigate that framework itself is unclear. And we can identify new ways of working and new ways of understanding these issues. So this again is a problem. This is it has potential. It's an opportunity for both people coming to the project and the project itself to explore and understand the regulatory framework in more detail and more nuance for the problems that it's being presented with. It's a proactive approach. Often regulators are forced to act reactively to some of the changes that are happening in the market, some of the products that are brought to us. The regulatory sandbox allows us to actually get out ahead and try to surface some of the issues that we may or may not be aware of, to have a bit more of a proactive understanding where tomorrow's problems might be coming, so that we can be better prepared as a nation to tackle this and ensure that product safety is as optimally balanced with innovation as possible. So this is also a direct opportunity for people to inform future guidance, because as I mentioned in the understanding the frameworks one, we may have gaps or areas where we could clarify further some of our positions or some of the ways of managing some of these challenges for regulating these products. So popping things down in this project to further influence our thinking on guidance and legislation is particularly beneficial. We're excited that this is the opportunity to work with you on a first of its kind regulatory sandbox in our space. It's certainly the first for the MHRA. We believe it might be the first for a medical device focus as well. So that's a particularly exciting one. At the end of the day, we're all here to create products that have a positive benefit to patients and public. So if there are challenges or issues that are blocking the safe and effective creation and deployment of these products, and we can help to remove some of these, this will have a positive benefit to the public and will allow us to ensure that we are tackling some of these complicated, innovative issues head on in a proactive manner as well. And linking to that, whilst Hannah pointed out that we're not positioning the AI Airlock as a new route to market, this is an explorative project in order to actually understand these problems a little bit better. A knock-on effect from that, we do believe, is the first step. And if we can find solutions during the project as well, that would be fantastic. Although just to reiterate, this is the pilot stage, so some of these solutions may take a long time to understand in full. But any positive things that come from this, any learnings, anything from this, all of this can go into de-risking innovation and making it easy to navigate future regulatory pathways. And that moves into the final point of the bottom line corner, that there are benefits, we think, to engaging with other routes to market, with getting your product through regulatory hurdles, whether it's here, whether it's elsewhere. But this is not a direct route to market. We need this space to be something that allows us to explore without the requirements to hit certain deadlines. For example, we need to be able to go where the problems are, work with people for as long as it takes to understand this. So that's some of the hopes that we hope to get out of this pilot phase. I believe I am now passing back to Hannah for the next slide. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think I mentioned previously, the call for applications will open after summer to allow candidates sufficient time over the summer months to consider their application. The agency is also working to ensure that our strategy is fully aligned with the government approach to AI and digital technology in health and social care, so that we can provide an application process which provides most benefit for delegates. We'll make an application form available on the Airlock programme website for candidates to then download, complete and return to the team for consideration. During the application process, the programme team will look to learn more about the product, including the intended use case, the clinical area, the patient population, also the organisation, size and ability to commit and dedicate resource to the Airlock pilot phase. And also to learn more about the regulatory challenge that the candidate would like to investigate as part of the Airlock, along with the areas of greatest need for support. Following the application, candidates may be invited to bring a presentation to a shortlisting meeting in order to share a bit more information about the product and the challenge. While the Airlock will be suitable for a multitude of AI medical device products, as we mentioned previously, along the entire product lifecycle, we would be looking for products that meet one or more of the following eligibility criteria. So the product or the concept should have the potential to deliver benefits for the patients as a medical device. It should be genuinely innovative or a novel application. The candidate should bring a regulatory challenge to the Airlock and have a genuine need for support. And the product would need to have reached a sufficiently mature place in terms of test readiness to be able to hit the ground running in the Airlock pilot. In summary, on the next slide, the Airlock will create a safe space to increase our understanding of the regulation of AI medical device products and the challenges faced today. By not acting as a new route to market, the risk to patients from unregulated products is lowered and mitigated from from this project specifically. This will be a unique experience for manufacturers and stakeholders across the sector. Each testing plan will be bespoke to each candidate. There's an opportunity for collaboration between manufacturers, regulators, and clinical experts from across the system. Programme governance routes for the Airlock and expert groups will be formed by this programme, enabling access to a brand new collection of expertise. Participants will be at the forefront of AI as a medical device regulation at the agency. Future guidance and legislation have the potential to be impacted by the learnings of this Airlock programme, and recommendations coming from these regulatory challenge testing scenarios will likely inform future policy. And this is an exciting way to bring innovation and regulation together and produce something that's transparent, accessible, and impactful. I'll hand back to Russell for some next steps.
Thanks, Hannah. Right, we're towards the end now, everybody, so we can move on to Q&A soon. But what's next? How can we get involved? I think, as Hannah mentioned, we're interested in this being a collaborative project, right? So we'll be opening the mailbox that you can see there under the blue box on the slide, ai@airlock.mhra.gov.uk. We'd be interested in hearing expressions of interest, people's ideas, people's questions that they didn't feel were reflected by the content of the slides today as well. We intend to open the call for application after the summer. We have listened to feedback from other projects and other events where everybody's got their summer holidays planned, everybody's got stuff to get sorted ahead of an application process like this. So we're going to leave it open. We're going to leave it a couple of weeks before engaging on that process, and we will send reminders around. We will send some information out to let people know that the application process is open. But yeah, we're just going to pause on that for a couple of weeks to give everybody a bit of time to get themselves prepared and not worry about disruption if they have any exciting plans over the summer holiday period. In the meantime, though, as mentioned, please do reach out. Please do contact us on our dedicated mailbox for this project. This can be for questions. This can be to bring new ideas or new areas where you think there is a benefit, where you think there is a particular challenge area that we didn't cover today. All of this stuff is fantastic input to the project, and we really are looking to learn as much about this in the pilot phase as possible, be able to craft future working on this and make sure that we're delivering the most effective sandbox for the sector that we can. I think finally, I just want to kind of reiterate, one other thing. I believe that we are also putting together a stakeholder list for a mailing list as well. So please do send your contact details to the Airlock mailbox, and we will be putting together a mailing list as well on that. That's another way that you can actually join in right now and start getting involved in the form of a little Airlock community. I think just finally, I wanted to just reiterate that a big part of the sandbox approach to this, and a big requirement, we think, of getting some of this right for the AI space, is collaborative working and is exploring unknown unknowns. So we're quite open to the sorts of things that might not be tackled or might not be currently spoken about in terms of this space. If people have very out there ideas, they may not be suitable for the Airlock. We'll have to deal that on a case-by-case basis. Either way, we would still like to hear from you. We would still like to engage with you. We'd still like to understand what's coming around the corner as well. So there's a lot of benefits to engaging early and engaging well, I feel. I think that takes us to the next slide, the end of the webinar.
Well, hopefully I will round up there, folks, in the last sort of 10-15 seconds. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you don't mind, thank you so much to the team that put all this together. Thank you for all of your questions. Apologies we couldn't get to them all. We left as much time as we can. We will try and get more information out to you in any way that we can to answer those questions. Please be in touch with us, and please sign up to our stakeholders list, and we'll let you know as soon as we launch for the application process. So thank you once again. Have a good day.